You've tuned into Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet.
Rumors, but I have not heard anything about the city burying people in parks.
Would you support that?
No.
What plans do you have to manage these bodies? I know there was...
I didn't know that there was an issue. I haven't heard that there was an issue. Has anybody heard that there's an issue? No. Does the city raise any issue? They talked to New York City. I talked to New York City yesterday.
What bodies? What park? Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting a lot of disturbing news right now. The Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, has gone into ICU. A couple days ago, we heard that they had barricaded the door at number 10. We thought they were kidding. He must have been coughing quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what happens when they lock people in. The indoor pollution gets you. And that's why it's so important that people go outside and get fresh air and get some sunshine. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the cure. That's part of the cure. That's part of what you need to do to manage this disease. And we hope that Boris Johnson pulls through. I'm sure a lot of people don't like him, but that doesn't mean that he should suffer this horrible death. That's what this is, a horrible death from this Wuhan super virus. Imagine all the people that are going to die here, ladies and gentlemen. We basically nuked Iraq for 3,000 people in New York. Imagine what the world will do after tens of thousands of people die in every country, and perhaps prime ministers and others will succumb. But right now, this is the breaking news. Is it a publicity stunt? Is it there to kind of pull on the emotional strings? And when he pulls through, you're just going to love him 10 times more. Oh, Boris, we thought we lost you. And so, we'll see all sorts of twists and turns in this story, undoubtedly. We'll keep following this issue. We're also following the reports from numerous publications that they're going to be burying people temporarily in city parks until they can give them a proper burial somewhere else. They're expecting that many bodies, thousands a day, ladies and gentlemen. So we got the New York Post reporting it. We got Breitbart reporting it. The Hill is reporting it. We've got metro.co.uk reporting it. New York City to begin burying bodies in mass graves in city parks. Why not the burn pits right outside of the city? I mean, that's what they did in Wuhan. It seemed pretty effective. What are they waiting for? There must be thousands and thousands of bodies right now, ladies and gentlemen. And what makes us think that? I mean, look at all of these bodies, if we can find them, out there in Ecuador. We've got containers full of bodies. It must be similar everywhere. This is a syndrome. This is what we've been seeing. This is what they've been hiding. But every once in a while, you get glimpses of just how deadly this virus is. And we've got another real disturbing video that's kind of like that. If we can find it. I'm sure we won't be able to find it anytime soon, but endless bodies everywhere. Let's see, this might be it. Where's the video guy at? How's everybody doing out there? Did you miss us? It's been like a whole 24 hours and we're back. But this is being reported everywhere. New York City to begin burying bodies in mass graves in city parks. And the governor was asked about this and he's like, rumors. What bodies? Have you heard anything about bodies? I haven't heard nothing about bodies. We got to play this clip again. Ladies and gentlemen, lots of big breaking news out there to cover. Let's hear this again.
Rumors, but I have not heard anything about the city burying people in parks.
Would you support that?
No.
What plans do you have to to manage these bodies? I know there was.
I didn't know that there was an issue. I haven't heard that there was an issue. Has anybody heard that there's an issue?
No.
Does the city raise any issue? They talked to New York City. I talked to New York City yesterday. I've not heard that this is an issue.
So there's some kind of miscommunication there, seems like. Numerous news outlets are reporting, and this isn't just some kind of like obscure group, on the dark web somewhere. You've got at least 4 or 5 major publications reporting on burying bodies in New York City. And the reporters are asking the governor. The governor's like, I don't know. I didn't know there was a problem. Well, where are they going to put all the bodies? Now, in Wuhan, they were burning the bodies right away. That was kind of like their thing out there anyways, was to burn the bodies, crematoriums. So they had these massive crematoriums set up. And, it was just normal to burn the bodies. But in America, we're kind of used to having the funeral and burying the bodies. And so you're just going to have to wait and see how many graves will show up. Will we see scenes like after 9/11 where people are looking for loved ones? Have you seen this person? They're missing after the epidemic. And of course, they can't have none of that, ladies and gentlemen. So we're probably going to be seeing quite a bit of action for quite some time to come. We're hearing stories, rumors, if you will, that next week or in the next 2 weeks, they're going to start pushing the cashless society in a few pilot cities. It's going to be part of the reboot. They're going to reboot certain cities with restrictions, social distancing, no cash. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But numerous places, numerous publications reporting that they're going to be burying bodies in New York City. Isn't that something? And the numbers are staggering here. We're going up to 400,000 cases here pretty soon. 10,000, over 10,000 dead, almost 11,000. Numerous countries have over 100,000 cases or approaching 100,000 cases. We're at around 1.3, 1.4 million cases worldwide. And everybody's like, oh, the Chinese lied. This thing is much worse than they were saying. And that was pretty obvious. I mean, you were looking at the videos. If anybody was looking at the same videos that we were looking at, where they're burying people alive, dead bodies everywhere, obviously this was much worse than what they were saying. And we're getting some reports of 21 million telephone subscribers gone, according to public data. They're missing 21 million people there. That's a rough estimate. That would make sense in a city or in a country that large. And this thing just spreads like wildfire. Nobody's ever seen anything spread so far. And if we've got so far so fast, if we've got time, we're going to look at the next strain phylogenetic tree and look at all the clades and different, strains and all of this stuff, because it's moving faster than we think. And there's a lot of conflicting reports as far as how fast is it actually mutating. But again, the centerpiece of these broadcasts for the last 2 or 3 months has been, you want to get ahead of this virus. You don't want to catch up to this virus. This is a bioweapon. It's made to evade tests and standard protection gear. Masks just won't cut it. It's not 100%. I mean, you basically need the spacesuit. And, here they are 3 months later, 3 months after everybody was warning them, including the CIA. We covered those news reports. The CIA handed off, dossiers to the White House about how dangerous this thing was. They ignored that. They ignored all sorts of warnings when it came to this virus, ladies and gentlemen. And, that's really become the centerpiece of our investigation. It's one thing to say, okay, where did this thing start at? Which is China, for sure. This is, the Wuhan supervirus. It escaped the lab, or it was released, from their lab, more than likely. I mean, there's a reason why it happened in Wuhan and not, Shanghai or something like that. Wuhan is where the biolabs are at. It's where the weapons labs are at. And so, that's why it happened there. We've looked at the smoking gun. We've looked at reports, official white papers, university papers and the like, research papers from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where they're working on an HIV SARS hybrid virus. They signed their name to it in Wuhan. And that's exactly what escaped. This thing's got HIV legs. And it's got people asking a lot of questions about, will people ever really get immunity to this? Will it keep coming back like the flu? How bad, will this be? Not just the first wave, but every subsequent wave after that. Because if there's continuous waves of outbreaks, that means we're never going to get our lives back. And it's important to understand how this started, because they're going to try and rewrite history and be like, we did everything we could. It was perfect. It was beautiful. And this thing, the Chinese lied to us. And it'll be the end of the story. But for months they knew, and they did nothing to try and contain it and the like. They're trying to catch up now. We've been watching the White House press briefings, and the last two have been better than usual. And there's some hope to think that we're near the end of the first wave. And lucky for us, summer is coming, and we can hope that will slow the virus enough for us to prepare and make up for lost time. And we can try and catch up to it at least a little bit and know more about it in terms of its pathogenesis, the full spectrum of disease, because we're learning about this thing not just being a respiratory disease, but that it attacks the heart, the nervous system, the immune system. So these are the scientific papers that are coming out. This is the official research that's coming out. Of course, there's a lot of people asking themselves right now, is there a virus? Which is a legitimate question, because nobody out there has actually, taken a specimen and, sequenced it for themselves. So nobody can really verify for themselves that there is a virus. We're just kind of, assuming that there's a virus because the television is telling us that's a virus. And history tells us to never trust the television. So is there a virus is a legitimate question, unfortunately, in the 21st century. But, if we were to assume that this is a virus, then the main storyline continues to be the main storyline. This virus was booted up in China, and the New World Order let it in to all of the different countries so that they could basically, become a dictator, suspend our constitutional rights, declare emergency powers, and the like. And of course, to portray themselves as heroes with endless press conferences where, they show themselves, in a leadership position, leading the troops, leading the charge, leading the war against an invisible enemy. Have we seen this before, the invisible enemy? It's like the terrorists of the early 2000s. The invisible enemy, the terror cells, the need for homeland security and laws like the Patriot Act and the like. And they named it, Patriot Act because they'd think nobody would ask any questions as far as what was in it. Because it must be patriotic. But in fact, what we learned is that it was totally Nazi-like, Gestapo-like, And patriots ended up probably being the primary target of that legislation. They just used, the gimmick of the invisible enemy, the Iron Mountain Doctrine. There has to be some kind of external enemy to focus on. And what's better than an invisible enemy? The invisible enemy could be anywhere, attack you at any time, Look, this is some real deep, psychological Tavistock Institute kind of stuff. Most people are aware. But this is another 9/11. They let these planes in on purpose. And we've played the clips, over and over
and when
again.
it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand."
Of course the orders still stand. Now, you remember the 9/11 documentaries, the clips like, is this real world or exercise? Because of course they were running drills that day that made it impossible for them to distinguish between real planes and virtual planes. So, that was part of, the drill that went live. The live exercise. Yes, the live exercise.
We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We're in a live exercise here.
And then Trump says, you should have let us know. Now, that could mean a couple different things. Like, shut the fuck up, pardon the language. Or it could mean like, so you're behind this too? Hard to say. Plausible deniability. It is a bitch, ladies and gentlemen. But we're dealing with a drop-dead virus that was allowed into our shores. Now, you could look at this as, a preemptive strike. The Chinese have attacked us. The enemy was at the gates. Now, nobody questions why the enemy is at the gates. That's what the enemy does. The question is, why did they let the enemy in? That's the question. What's worse, the army outside your gates or the traitors that let this Trojan horse in? Oh, it's just the flu. It's no big deal. Go have fun at the Super Bowl parties. Go come to the rally. Go do what you normally do. Go to Disneyland, Disney World. No worries. No need for a mask. Just wash your hands. Right? This is an airborne virus. It's a respiratory disease. And just about every respiratory disease transmits, infects, because it's airborne. That's like 101. And for the longest time, they sowed confusion. They put in place this false sense of security and let people get infected. That's attempted murder. They've attempted to murder every person on this planet, every citizen in every country. Doesn't matter if you're American or British or Australian or Canadian or Irish or whatever out there. They've all tried to kill you in their own ways, in their own countries. And we've seen this in in many countries, in different languages, where they're basically just laughing at you as you're running for the grocery store. Most people were out there trying to get groceries, trying to get toilet paper, trying to get anything they could. They didn't even know what to buy, the poor sheeple out there. And all of these, ministers were basically laughing, sneering during their press conferences, like, we wish you well. Good luck out there. Ladies and gentlemen, live exercise. Now, we also had a couple drills, exercises running that day, the day that the infection started, as we're learning right now. They were running the Event 201 in October 2019 and the Crimson Contagion, as well as the Wuhan military game. So there's a lot of, things going around Wuhan. involving bioweapons and the like in late October. Knowing these people, they probably released it right around Halloween. And, the first reported infections were sometime in November. It probably started a little bit before that, before it got on the radar, before they could actually figure out that there was an issue. So the timeline fits in real nice. We've got the drills, we've got basically the, admitted confessions, the Freudian slips, if you will, the micro expressions, and we've got, other examples of this. There was this one as
We'll take questions, and it's a beautiful Friday in Washington, D.C., and our country's a great place, and we're getting better. We're getting better very quickly. This was artificially induced. This was artificially induced. This was artificially induced. We just said, they said, close it down. You have to close it down. We closed it down, and we're healing, and we're going to get it better fast. We'll take questions, and it's a beautiful Friday in Washington, D.C., and our country's a great place, and we're getting better. We're getting...
The video guy. It's always the video guy. But, this is induced, an artificially induced pandemic, a plandemic. So it's got all the fingerprints. And now that the official narrative is blowing up once again during a Gladiobe event, they're like trying to, basically turn down the heat, tamper down the epidemic. The numbers are coming down. The cure, the mystery cure is arrived off the shelf. They've ordered a bunch. Everything's going to be okay. And so they kind of want to walk away from this operation. You can tell already it's looking bad for them. And unfortunately, it looks like it's a little late for all of that. This thing is so infectious, it'll be back, every flu season for at least 3 or 5 years. Chances are forever it'll just like melt into the flu. And we never know what this thing is going to mutate into. It has the potential of coming back, twice as nasty, 10 times as nasty. And I think, right now people deserve some answers. They deserve to know the truth so that it doesn't get rewritten later on and all of a sudden, normal people end up being the enemy of the state once again. As you can see, little by little, these people are surrounding you with death towers, they're fluoridating you, they're gassing you with pesticides and chemtrails and the like. I mean, these people are out to get you. They're releasing viruses on you. Plus, they're grooming your children, at the schools and the like. You have to wonder, when is enough going to be enough? When are people going to say, fuck it, it's time for the boogaloo, it's time for the reset and the like. And, believe it or not, there's a lot of people chattering about that right now. And it must be making, the fusion centers sweat. But, obviously our federal system is broken. These people cause problems. They're like, the rogue firefighters that start fires for, summer jobs and the like. These people have become professional rogue firefighters, starting fires in every which way they can. And then they arrive magically on scene like, oh yeah, we're on top of it. See, you need us now, don't you? Problem, reaction, solution. This Nature article here says that shedding of viral RNA outlasted the end of the symptoms sometimes by 14-21 days. An interesting article from Nature magazine. And we're still, learning a lot about what this virus does, what its disease is. You've heard of AIDS, that's caused by HIV. And, they're calling the disease COVID-19, and the virus is the Wuhan supervirus. WSV. But We're learning a lot about this virus. It's like nothing, it's like no standard flu. I mean, this thing attacks the kidneys, it attacks the heart, it attacks the brain, it attacks the lungs. This thing is not like the flu. It lingers for much longer. They're seeing viral loads in, at least 1 out of 2 people, span 21, 28 days. And so it lingers. There's, so many questions yet to be answered, and that they're trying to hide the worst of it from you. But we're picking up pieces of what's going on. Let's continue on with the news, and we'll try and get into, more things. But, the big breaking news right now is Boris Johnson has gone into the ICU. That's the reports. They had barricaded him in number 10, Downing Street. It's like their White House for a prime minister that isn't elected. It's not a democracy. It's a, dictatorship out there. But nonetheless, Boris Johnson is a likable person, kind of. Not necessarily in his politics or, anything like that. But he just seemed like, a person that you could hang out with. And this is a horrible disease. People suffocate like fish out of water. And, you wouldn't wish that upon anyone. You don't know what these people were thinking, the New World Order. It's always the same thing. I mean, these people, are just out there to torment you and to kill you. And it's like a suicide cult like Jonestown. And you can't really understand crazy people. You've seen them, out there at the train station or the bus station talking to themselves. You can't understand crazy people, really. But they're out there. And right now we've got crazy people in charge of the whole system. They're way out there in left field, way out there. And you can't help them. But they're dangerous. And they're in charge of the nuclear button. Ladies and gentlemen. It's very disturbing, to say the least. Anyways, we're not going to dwell on that. But they barricaded him in number 10. And now, the indoor pollution got him. He's in the ICU. We're not sure how far, he's progressed. And you can just hope that it's just still oxygen and he's breathing on his own. But, most people that go on the ventilator don't come out. The vast majority. And the time to get the, hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack and the like is early on, and all the doctors are now kind of jumping on board with that. This stuff should be handed out basically to everyone who wants to take it, wants the right to try. And that was a real powerful, part of the president's press conference yesterday. He came back to, his endeavor of right to try. And that should absolutely be, what's going on right now. People should have the right to try the Plaquenil and the Zithromax combo if they feel up to it. Now, we're hearing that people with heart conditions probably shouldn't take this combo. There's other combos and there's other things in the works. And this anti-parasite medicine that's been on the shelf for many years as well, ivermectin, sold as Stromectol, is showing a lot of promise as well. And some countries are running with the Plaquenil and the Coletra combo, which is an HIV medication, Coletra. And perhaps there isn't the same type of, heart palpitations and the like with the Z-Pack. But in any case, the hydroxychloroquine, which, is basically given out to people in Africa all the time over the counter for malaria. It's been used to treat lupus. People have been on it for 5-10 years every day. So it's a relatively safe, well-known substance. Undoubtedly, you know, there's going to be a certain percentage of people with side effects. But right now, this is, you know, this is saving lives. And more doctors are agreeing that this is saving lives. And all bottlenecks, red tape, hurdles, unnecessary madness associated with getting this life-saving medication, all the red tape should be gone. This should be out there in every drugstore right now, like antacids, like Pepto-Bismol, like Tylenol, because literally everybody's been exposed to this bioweapon. And trying to test everybody at this stage is really going to tell us what we already know. Everybody's infected. Now, there's something to know about the tests that they're not talking about. And, you know, the tests are 50% accurate, literally. You know, we're going to be getting into that news. It's coming back every day. Newer tests, you know, the 15-minute tests, etc. 50% accurate. That means you got a 1 in 2 chance of an accurate reading when you take the test. So what does that tell you? It's like the test doesn't tell you shit. Now, you know, they can take, you know, stool samples, urine samples, blood samples, you know, serum samples, sputum samples, and know for sure, you know, with a CAT scan, all that stuff. But they could just ask a simple question. Are you feeling shortness of breath? Are you feeling a little fatigue? Okay, well, you probably have it. Take the hydroxychloroquine. Have a nice day. Easy as that. But instead, they want to waste your time with all sorts of shit. And, you know, that just shows their bad faith. You know, that just shows that, you know, they're really out to get you and not help you at this stage. You know, as far as Zithromax, maybe you probably do need to be followed by, you know, a nurse or something. They take your heart rate for the first few days that you're on it, see if you get an irregular heartbeat or anything changes. But I think that could be, you know, standardized with some kind of conference thing, you know, some kind of Skype or whatever. Some kind of app.
Questions.
Oh,
and,
for fuck's sakes, the video guy's fired. Anyways, let's move on with the news. We got a lot of news to cover. Some kind of factory is being reported like spewing like some kind of acidic gas. And people are stuck indoors, forced to breathe it in. And the official report is to basically, you know, tape up your windows best you can, suffocate in there. And you're going to be seeing a lot of this. You know, they're going to try and do everything they can to poison your little prison cell wherever you live, wherever you're, you know, residing right now. They're going to be like, yeah, you need to power clean, bring out the bleach, which turns into chlorine and, you know, irritates the lungs. They're going to be spraying disinfectants everywhere. You'd think like, oh, spraying disinfectants would be a good idea in an outbreak, but not with this disease. It actually accelerates the disease through inflammation. And most diseases, you know, is loving inflammation as kind of like a highway, if you will. One thing we kind of wanted to mention too, which is I think really important, with the hydroxychloroquine, the reason they think it works is because it reduces the acidity, if you will, inside the cell. And that's all the more reason to, you know, take a little baking soda every day. You know, the best kind that you can, top shelf baking soda, you know, meant for cooking. And, you know, take like up to 2 teaspoons a day, you know, in half teaspoon doses, as well as turmeric. We would probably recommend, you know, 1 or 2 tablespoons a day, you know, cut up into little doses. And that's a natural anti-inflammatory. We've left other nice little tips in the video description on the ScrewTube. You can find the ScrewTube channel on our website, stfnreport.com. stfnreport.com for Stranger Than Fiction News. That's stfnreport.com. Anyways, we update that numerous times a day, so get the best news out there. All of the links here will be there. 48-hour summary, which, you know, gives us, you know, numbers that are a little more interesting to look at. We're still looking at, you know, quite a few people getting taken out by this virus, obviously.
We'll take questions
and
and
the video guy. we'd like to take questions. We'd like to have people call in, I'll be honest with you. If anybody's got any interesting ideas how we might be able to interface that. You know, some people might say Google Hangouts, but then we can't really do the show the way we do it. So I'd like to have some kind of, you know, easy way for people to call in onto the show without using, you know, an actual telephone, you know, without a telephone number. But if anybody's got any ideas, I'm sure somebody's going to say Zoom or something, maybe Discord, but if there's anything else that comes to mind. Anyways, I thought that was kind of a trippy little video. Ugly choices will have to be made very soon, they say. Any notion that we're going back to where we came from is nearly impossible at this stage. Never say that the good old days were better than today, because that's obvious, ladies and gentlemen. It's like saying water is wet. We'd all like to go back to the good old days. And it's funny, you know, every generation says that pretty much. Oh, I'd like to go back to the good old days, because it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You know, you look at Nick at Night, you look at, you know, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith, even the Brady Bunch. I mean, that was like a whole different world compared to the people out there today, all these libtards running around Sodom and Gomorrah. No wonder a virus is going to wipe them out. Oh, that's the deep state position. You know, when they tell you to shelter in place, to grab your ankles, you're just waiting for the deep state to penetrate. No astroglide, ladies and gentlemen. They like it rough. And they'll be going door to door, have no doubt about it. We're already getting, you know, reports of that in other countries. And it won't be long before, you know, they're rounding up people, saying that they're infected. You know, they've suspended the Constitution, they've suspended your rights, and now they can just show up anywhere and say this person is infected and take them away, and nobody's going to ask questions, nobody's going to help you. Oh, that one's infected. Fuck that. You know, I'm going the other way. I'm going to mind my own business. You know what I mean? So that's very problematic, and I think they need to restore order and the like, and they just need to put in place common sense practices right now to contain this disease, which would include masks and you know, treatments available for everyone. There's a lot of people out there with no insurance or, you know, no desire to be on the radar and listed as COVID positive. So they're really going to need to set up, like, you know, home tests that work and an easy way to get the meds without going through a bunch of hoops and hurdles. This isn't the fault of, you know, regular people out there, and we need to make sure that everybody gets treated for this virus in an easy way before they go into intensive care, because by then it's too late. The damage has been done. And, you know, the studies are real clear there. There's serious damage to the lungs, and, you know, the hydroxychloroquine isn't going to reverse the damage. It's there to prevent the damage, not to reverse the damage. And so it's important that, you know, people are able to take the meds at the onset of symptoms and not, you know, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days later. It needs to be, you know, right now. So undoubtedly there's not enough meds for everyone, and that's why they're, you know, rationing it out. So who's going to get it? You know, that's the question. And, you know, we're starting to talk to people that know people that have, you know, basically kicked the bucket because of this thing. I think, you know, as time goes on, more and more people are going to realize that this is a real virus, not a fake virus. And you're going to be more and more interested about the cure and at least treatment options. There probably won't be a cure for this virus. You know, that's the nature of it. It's like the flu. You can't cure the flu, but you can perhaps treat it to a certain extent. And that's the best people can hope for at this stage, is treatment options that aren't going to bankrupt you, that aren't going to kill you, and the like. And again, we emphasize, herbal detox of the liver, the kidneys, and the lungs. We've listed some herbs that are known for that. You can probably find some kind of detox elixir at the herbal store, the nature store. Just look at those ingredients and try to find, the elixir with the most of them. Let's see what else we got. 97% of antibiotics in the USA relies on China. 70% of drugs are manufactured in India. And, those countries are now kind of like, questionable locations. And so we really need to produce more in America. We've always kind of, shipped out, outsourced the work to other countries and just paid for it in cash, if you will. But, right now things have changed. The dynamics have changed. World politics are going to change because of this, and foreign supply chains just aren't going to be reliable or as reliable as they used to be. So we really need to start making more things at home, obviously, and we should have been doing this for quite some time. This is a huge wake-up call on so many fronts. It shows us, how unprepared we are and how over-reliant we are on people that don't like us. And, this change of mindset is well overdue. We need to make more things. That comes at a cost because, making things, basically means pollution, contaminants, more byproducts. And, they've already got trouble with the things that they do make right now. Now, earlier today, India reported that they were going to stop exporting hydroxychloroquine to the U.S. because they've got over 1 billion people that are going to need the meds. Looks like Trump gave them a call and got our shipment back, but we'll see how that goes. Right now, there's a real fight for supplies. I'm sure you've heard the stories. It's getting desperate out there for everything. And that was, part of the 1-2 punch of this kamikaze attack at the beginning. The Chinese sacrificed, 0.01% of their population and, sucked up the world's supplies of personal protection equipment and left everybody, hung out to dry, basically. And, maybe they'll make up for it, but I don't think anybody's going to forget this. And this is far from over. This is just the first wave. Over 50,000 dead in Europe. That's a pretty big number. Just like that, And they're roughly a week or two ahead of us. They've got twice the population, nearly. And not quite, but nearly. And so if we kind of like project those numbers onto what we should expect, we'll probably be looking at 30,000 dead in the next week or so. That seems kind of realistic. We might be a third of the way there. It may plateau, it may linger. You have to wonder about how accurate are the numbers right now. We obviously know that if they could test everybody in the country right now, we'd be looking at a lot more than 300,000 cases. We'd probably be looking at 100 million, 200 million people that are infected right now. And a lot of people just kind of assume that in a week or two this is all over for people that get infected and that's the end of the story. But it could be that this disease is not only like AIDS, but like cancer. And, with some people, there's a real rapid onset, but with other people, it could take months or maybe even a year. And so, to say that these numbers are final right now is far from accurate. The least you can say is that the death figures lag the current figures by 2 or 3 weeks. If you believe the 2 or 3 week, onset to, death kind of scenario, then, once they confirm a case, it takes 2 or 3 weeks for there to be an outcome for that case. So, in theory, we should be expecting a lot more deaths unless, they can get the hydroxychloroquine to everybody that's, out there in the hospitals right now, et cetera, et cetera. But it'll be interesting to see where the final numbers stand. Right now, the global meter, the world meter statistics put it at about 5%. And, if this virus still has to burn through, 100 million people or 200 million people before it's all said and done, and the death rate is at 5%, I mean, we could be looking at 10, 15 million people dead in America over the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, that would be, I think, a reasonable projection based on the current numbers and the like. And so the question is, when are those 10 or 15 million people going to kick it? Is it going to be, in this wave? Is it going to be in the second wave? Is it going to be in the third wave? And I think there's a strong probability, before they can get a vaccine out there to everybody, which will probably at least be a year and a half, we're likely going to get a full winter of this shit, come next winter, which could be a full-scale, mini genocide, if you will, at that stage. And that could actually happen this summer as more people, advance from stage 1 COVID to stage 2 to stage 3. And, again, we're not convinced that everybody goes through this disease at the same rate. That might sound kind of weird, but, just it's what it looks like at this stage. There's a possibility. It's not, for sure. Again, there's a lot of things we don't know for sure about this virus, but, we have heard of cases where, people have died 5 days later after being cleared with 2 tests at the hospital. They were in quarantine, they took 2 tests, they cleared. 5 days later, it was drop dead virus. Confirmed COVID, and it was so bad they were recalling everybody in China that went through the original 14-day quarantine to go through another 14-day quarantine. And then we didn't hear anything else about it. It just disappeared from the radar. So suspicious indeed. Let's see if we can get some more interesting video. Maybe not. But right now in the UK, they are going after sunbathers. There could be just like one person sitting by themselves, nobody around them at all, and they'll just charge up on you and be like, you must leave. You cannot be outside in public parks, no fresh air for you. And this is the idea. They're trying to hypernormalize burying people alive, locking them down in their buildings. And that's when we started to see, the whole thing really just go hyperbolic. As soon as they started locking down and forcing people to stay home, for some reason that triggers it. Why that is it the routers, the Wi-Fi? Is it the power cleaning? Is it the perfume, the incense, the cooking? All of that stuff, which irritates the lungs. It could have something to do with that. That's our theory, but it's scientific as well. Thousands of coronavirus-infected New Yorkers treated with the anti-malarial drug. So will we see it make a difference is the question. You have to remember that, the Chinese knew all about this drug because it's, basically like a SARS type of virus. And so they were pulling out all the stops, Didn't look like it made a huge amount of difference. But, you know, maybe it's just because they didn't distribute it to people enough. You have to wonder about the role of 5G. You know, 5G was rolled out in Wuhan. It got hit really hard compared to other places. We've noticed that the locations with the highest death rates also have like the worst air quality as well. The north of Italy, you know, is just renowned for terrible air quality, as well as, you know, the eastern coast of Spain, Barcelona, Valencia, all of that. So wherever we see, as well as like the east of France, the Rhine Valley, you know, along Switzerland and Germany and all of that stuff, they saw a lot of cases explode out there. And so we have, you know, let's just call it probable cause to suspect air quality as a comorbidity factor, a major one. Comorbidity, bitches. Anyways, so they're testing. Royal Mail postman wipes his his nose with his hands and then repeatedly touches the person's front door and all sorts of things. It was pretty bad. The mailman's out to get you. Belfast phone mast hit with arson, they say, after links to the coronavirus. So, you know, EMF in general, static electric fields, pulsed electric fields, damage your immune system. This is well known. And this is why, you know, leukemia is associated with these types of fields. And of course, leukemia is cancer of the white blood cells, your immune system. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that, you know, EMF is bad, especially when it comes to a worldwide, you know, pandemic with the Wuhan supervirus, ladies and gentlemen. So we absolutely recommend people, you know, find a way to cut out the EMF in their lives. You know, use a tethered connection instead of a wireless connection. You know, use a laptop or a desktop and get the Ethernet cable out. Make sure you don't have, you know, any EMF running around in your house. Try to, you know, insulate the best you can. It can be tough. You know, it's like light in a sense. And so if you want to try and block out, you know, light, it's tough. So, but you really want to manage the EMF stress in your life for numerous reasons. Anyways, yeah, people are taking the citizens. They're just out there just rolling out more and more eugenics programs because the government is not your friend. That's the essence of the U.S. Constitution. You know, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, Third Amendment. It's all about protecting you from government. You have the right to free speech. You have the right to protest your government. You have the right to bear arms. You have the right to remain silent and the like. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right to a jury trial. You have the right to not be cruelly or unusually punished. You know, all of these rights are there to protect you from government because government is not your friend. It's a necessary evil, but it's, you know, totally overstepped its bounds, you know, as it was intended originally. Yeah, it looks like they're fly tipping dead bodies out there in Ecuador. That's how bad it is. And, you know, there's like dead bodies everywhere. It makes you wonder if this isn't what happened to some of these other dead bodies that we're seeing that we saw from the China outbreak. Never would have thought of that one. Fly tipping dead bodies because they don't want them in their homes anymore, and they won't pick them up. You have to wonder, you know, how bad is it really? And that's the whole purpose of locking people in their homes, is so that, you know, people aren't dropping dead on the streets. It's harder to see what's going on. Try to keep tabs of everybody you know. Make sure they're okay out there. and try to, let us know what you're seeing out there. Are you hearing about anybody in your area being infected personally? What's the activity at the testing site? Are you seeing them testing people yet? And the like. And I think we got news reports about this here coming up. So we'll continue on, try to get through all the news. Azithromycin and ciprofloxacin have a chloroquine-like effect on respiratory epithelial cells. So they're looking at other cocktails. Interesting read here. Her name was Emily Jones Bolton. She was 7 years old. On March 22nd, Emily was stabbed in the neck and killed in broad daylight. And the media buried her story because the killer is a 30-year-old Somali immigrant. I'm not sure how many people have been to Minneapolis, St. Paul, but, it's no longer Minnesotan out there. It's like, some kind of Somali pirate ship landed and never gave the city back. Now you know how the natives feel like, bitches, you know what I mean? You'd probably accept this without question, too. This seems to be like a real video. So it sounds like a British accent, kind of looks like Britain. This robot is going around reminding people, you must stay indoors. You know what I mean? And it's bad. They're crazy out there in the UK. I don't mind saying it. They're way off, off the charts. They basically pioneered like mutilating, young children. They're now, kids are like, they brainwashed us into changing our gender, and it was like a cult, and it's, it's real bad, man. We're just starting to figure out, everything that they were up to. World Health Organization lulled the world into not taking action. Early on in January of this year, they were like, oh, this thing doesn't, transmit human to human.
Meaningful way.
And, they were just lying to us so bad, building this false sense of security. So earlier today, we learned that Boris Johnson was hospitalized. Now it's the ICU. I mean, it's just, what are they trying to do over there? It almost looked like they tried to kill him. I mean, they barricaded him in the room. They didn't want to let him out. No fresh air for Boris. And, they just set that guy up too. I mean, they were just telling him, hey, just wash your hands, you'll be fine. This is an airborne virus. They knew it was airborne, day one. But they're like, oh no, the doctors say it's just wash your hands. The reason they said that is because they didn't have enough masks for everybody. Huge forest fire near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. That one's been raging for a couple days. Spain's coronavirus death toll rises by its lowest amount. And this is kind of like what we're seeing overall in Europe, Italy, France, Spain, Germany, lower numbers. But what does that mean really? Because as soon as they, kind of remove the lockdown, the thing will just start flaring up again. That's what we're seeing. It's like a nuclear reactor melting down. Half of the results from the game changer coronavirus home testing kits ordered by the government could be unreliable, according to scientists checking them. So this is like, a real big story, actually. 1 in 2 home testing kits aren't going to work, according to their scientific studies. And, obviously, there's plenty of blame, to put out there. As far as, the Chinese and Western governments are concerned. The Chinese booted up this virus. They used the city of Wuhan as an incubator to infect the world. But the world let this thing in, and it's all part of the plan. Have no doubt about it. This is all part of the plan, ladies and gentlemen. But we're getting some good news. Check out our updates on stfnreport.com. stfnreport.com for Stranger Than Fiction news. We appreciate everybody tuning in out there. We're probably just going to leave it there for this broadcast. Hancock threatens to ban all exercise and sunbathers. That will condemn their entire country to a much higher death rate. And that's what they want. You know, it's a cult of death, ladies and gentlemen. That's what these people are. They're bad news. Check out our Twitter feed. Oh, you heard this girl was faking it, right? And people are shocked, and it's like, you know, another crisis actor? What's going on? Remember this one, ladies and gentlemen. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Proverbs 25:28. You know, and this is about demonic possession. When you don't have the armor on, you're just open up for, you know, demonic influence and the like. And so don't be a city without walls, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll have to leave it there for this broadcast. We've kind of gone full circle there. Till the next time, if you're listening to this, ladies and gentlemen, you are the resistance. Oh, the video guy. Yeah, we're still alive. Okay, you are